We got two great sessions up next. Building Bitcoin businesses led today by a Bitcoin community ambassador and an actual person that puts her money where her mouth is, getting things done in the community. That's right. Maria Sabando is here, and of course she's a former IT banking risk manager turned strategic advisor for the masses. Also known as Maru, right? Can I call you that? Maru was actually incredibly helpful helping us organize this. We were shopping for venues together, connecting us with great speakers. So everybody give her a nice round of applause to Maria. Come on up on stage.
Thank you so much for the introduction.
Sure. And
I'm so excited for this panel because I have such a great panel. So first up, Mike Jarmuz. He is a general partner of Lightning Ventures. He's known for being an advisor and an investor on multiple early-stage Bitcoin businesses. Neil Jacobs, he is the head of brand engagement for Swan, and he's also the co-founder of FOMO 21. Ow! I just had laughs. John Burnett, he's a local favorite. I'm having a moment. He is the founder of Taquiza, and we just had his delicious food.
Yes. Thanks for lunch, John.
Unfortunately, Michelle was not able to make it today, but Gabe Hibbins has stepped up, and we're grateful for you. He is the co-author of Thank God for Bitcoin. He is also the co-founder of Blog Spaces, and he is the organizer of Bitcoin Tampa Bay meetup. So he's been supporting the community here in Florida, all of them in Florida. So I can't wait to get started. Recently, River released a report stating that in the past year, about 60% of Bitcoin businesses have acquired Bitcoin to add it to their reserves. 60%. That's huge. For those of us that have been here in this space for a while, we've seen growth in Bitcoin across different industries. And there's been early stage businesses all the way to publicly traded companies incorporating Bitcoin, adding it as a payment solution, and adding it to their reserves. So this panel is dedicated for all the aspiring entrepreneurs that are here today, as well as those entrepreneurs that are still a little bit doubtful about how to get started to accept Bitcoin as payment. So we're getting the perspective of all the founders here. This is going to be really great. To get started, I wanted to get your take on what you define to be a Bitcoin business. There's a debate that a Bitcoin business is one that leverages the Bitcoin network protocol as the base layer for whatever product or service that business offers, while others define Bitcoin businesses as any business that accepts Bitcoin as a form of payment. So what's your take on that? Why don't we start with Neil?
This thing on?
Yes.
Yeah, I would just say anyone accepting Bitcoin, participating in the Bitcoin ecosystem is enough for them to be a Bitcoin business. Not everyone needs to be a developer, a cryptographer, you know? It's just about spreading the word about Bitcoin, and one of the ways to do that is to accept Bitcoin for your business.
So we invest in Bitcoin startups and Bitcoin companies, right? We just focus in that area. And you could make a pretty good argument that there's actually no such thing as a Bitcoin business, right? So if you think about it, like Swan, right? They're a financial company, right? They just happen to deal in Bitcoin, you know? I mean, pick any company, right? Slice, like that's an ad tech company, but you can withdraw Bitcoin, right? So what is a Bitcoin business? You know, even like IBEX or OpenNode, like they're infrastructure and payments companies, they just happen to be dealing with Bitcoin. So, you know, is the shoe shop around the corner that's accepting Bitcoin, is that a Bitcoin business? I mean, according to Neil, it might be. Neil sells T-shirts, right? neilsfomo21.com/muzz for your referral. No, I'm just kidding. There's no referral, but the referral. No, but you know, it's a merchandising company, right? It's
that sells Bitcoin designs.
It sells Bitcoin and other type of end the Fed sort of loony bin shirts, right? It's a merchandising company. Bitcoin Magazine.
He has multiple shirts of mine, by the way.
Bitcoin Magazine is really like a media company, right? It's a media and event company. It just circulates around us in the cult, right? I mean, that's what they do. So, like, what is a Bitcoin business? I mean, it's really a good question. I mean, we define it as, you know, anyone who's building on, around, or with Bitcoin in one way or another. We invested in Crowd Health. I mean, that's a healthcare company, right? They just happen to have a Bitcoin component to it, you know? So it's a really good question, like what is a Bitcoin company? Is a bar in New York City where I can, you know, pay for a round of drinks with Bitcoin, is that a Bitcoin company? I mean, no. I mean, in my opinion, it's not. But it's definitely a fun question that we think about a lot is what is a Bitcoin company?
Anyone that's spreading the Bitcoin word, you know, in a positive way is a Bitcoin company. That by my standards, not by Mike's, obviously.
Gabe, do you have a different perspective on this?
I think it's a blend, right? Because you can be a normal business doing normal business operations, but if you're adopting the Bitcoin standard and being more acquainted with how that could change your business dynamic, I think that makes you a Bitcoin business in a sense.
All right. So
Panties for Bitcoin. Is it a Bitcoin company?
Yes.
Yeah, they're spreading the word about Bitcoin.
All right. So it sounds like we're setting the bar that if you accept Bitcoin as payment, you are a Bitcoin business. Okay, let's continue. Let's continue. So for you founders and for the aspiring entrepreneurs here, when you first started accepting Bitcoin as payment, I imagine that you met with your accountants. So what were some of the first things that you discussed with them? And I would love to start with you, John. Like, what were some of the considerations that went through you as you were planning your business?
I didn't actually talk with them first.
Okay.
We told them how it was going to be. But this question comes up a lot. How do I account for Bitcoin? But we kind of crunched our brains on that for a little bit. And it really doesn't affect things very much at all. This is typically kind of a stumbling block for people to get in, and they're worried about this aspect. But when you think about it, in our case, our POS is denominated in dollars. We ring up the transaction in dollars. We, route the sales tax in dollars. It goes into accounting in dollars. The only thing that's different is that we have a payment type that's Bitcoin, which is just a balance sheet issue. So it's really less of an issue than most people think, but a lot of them have this kind of stumbling block like, oh, it's going to make accounting crazy. It really doesn't at all. It's a lot simpler than people think.
Gabe, you have a different model for your business. So do you have different considerations with your accountant?
Yes, because we hold most of our asset in Bitcoin, like all our treasury reserves and our operational capital is mostly in Bitcoin. So there's a little bit of a different consideration you have there because we are operating on the Bitcoin standard, as it were, which I think makes us a lot more mindful of how we spend our capital at any given moment and be as efficient as possible with it.
One thing that's interesting, and by the way, Neil, I think, is the only CPA up here that knows everything about taxes. And Gabe also previously was building something to help people do their taxes and accounting with a QuickBook plugin and all that kind of stuff. The thing is like if you're thinking about like, should I accept Bitcoin, and you're hung up on like taxable implications, and you're worried about it for your business, like, should I really accept? The reality is nobody's going to show up and pay you Bitcoin. That's the best part, right? Like, you go through this big debate. I'm like, nobody uses Bitcoin. Nobody's paying for Bitcoin.
20% of our customers use Bitcoin, I think.
20%. Rapid fire, John.
But what I would just say about that is our business is more Bitcoin businessy than, just if a coffee shop accepts Bitcoin. We're selling a Bitcoin product. So we're going to attract people who want to use Bitcoin more. So for us, you know, we're going to have a higher percentage of people using
And I am
Bitcoin.
one of Neil's customers that pay in Bitcoin.
Yeah, there you go. So, but I could see when you say no one uses Bitcoin, it's no one uses Bitcoin in traditional fiat businesses that are geared towards fiat-minded people. And I don't want to use the word no one because I don't know if that's true.
Let's get some numbers on this because I don't think it's zero. John, what percentage of your customer base pays on Bitcoin?
So he's right. It is very small right now. So it's probably, you know, less than 4%, 2% of revenue.
That's not nothing.
No, it's not nothing. And I think the important part is not what percentage of revenue do you accept in Bitcoin. I think laying that infrastructure is the most important part. And if you lay the infrastructure, we don't know how this whole fiat thing is going to come down or shake out. And there's a lot of different discussion on how it could be. But I don't want to be in a position of, you know, extended 3-week bank holidays and all this kind of stuff. And I can't accept anything. And not only that, just whenever somebody comes up and they start, you know, seeing Bitcoin, seeing this, that you're actually taking it, this is just setting a precursor signal to the general public that it's out there, it's important, what is it? And then the other thing, I got to give a shout out to my buddy Michael Atwood from Oshi app. He's doing great work, and our whole rewards program is with his application, and so people will pay in dollars, maybe know nothing about Bitcoin, and then they'll get a text or an email saying, hey, you get Bitcoin rewards back with your purchases, and click here to redeem it, and they're like, So I think it's...
Do they also get discounts?
It quasi is a discount. He changed it a little bit. It used to be that it was more of an application of sorts, and now he's transitioning, I think, more to the rewards program, but you could decide if you wanted a discount or rewards, but now it's just rewards, and it's pretty interesting to see how that works. Another interesting thing is that we loaded up our account for these rewards with $1,000 or something, and a lot of people didn't redeem them. What we retained in our account rose in value with the price appreciation that we were ahead.
It sounds like a win-win situation for everyone. Great incentive program. With that in mind, I also wanted to ask you, Gabe, since you mentioned that the majority of your accounts is in Bitcoin and you retain the Bitcoin, how do you handle operations with that in mind? Like, what are some of the considerations that you take to be able to pay what you need to pay on a monthly basis or whatever frequency your accounts need to be settled in?
Yeah, you just pay attention, keep a tight view of your costs, and then manage that appropriately with the price of Bitcoin swings. So you know, you need to build in enough volatility buffer, as it were, to make sure you're not in a position where you're overspending.
Do you have any like arbitrage strategies that you recommend for?
Not yet, but we would explore those. Yeah.
Cool. Great. And also as well, for the aspect of taxes, when you hold Bitcoin in your reserves, you have some tax obligations that you need to report. Like, what are some of those that you can mention for the audience here that they need to be aware of?
Yeah, I mean, capital gains, so you just got to keep track of the cost basis of when you receive the Bitcoin versus when you spend it, but that's why you hire accountants to do that. And it's really not a big deal. It's done all the time with a number of different assets, so it's not too crazy.
Mike, are there any reporting requirements that the audience should know about if they want to invest on a Bitcoin-only company?
As far as the treasury goes, pretty much every portfolio company that Lightning Ventures has all have a Bitcoin treasury. Some YOLO more than others, right? But that has worked out in 100% of the cases for every company that's holding Bitcoin. And that has to be timing, right? Because you could get, it wouldn't necessarily be the case a year and a half ago. But when we just raised a small amount of money for a project that we're working on, the first thing that we did was turn on a DCA hourly with River in our corporate account, right? It wasn't very much, but what is it? Can we do $25 an hour just to start with the little bit of treasury that we have just rotting away in fiat? You know, we raised a little bit more, and can we bump that to like $70 an hour? And, you know, we are actually down, you know, slightly with the way that the price has went, and it's still chugging away, you know, but we had companies that closed a big seed round, and they just started investing $10,000 a day until that seed round, you know, until you can't anymore, and, you know, you have to pay bills and you have to manage your own treasury. But many of our companies invested at 16 to 20, you know, $4,000 Bitcoin, substantial chunks, and their runway has like increased significantly. I don't know if that's exactly the case in Gabe's situation, but it's definitely worked, you know, 100% of the time, except for me. Of course, we're down about $1,600 so far, but you know, one good day and we're back.
Yes, that is actually true. Holding Bitcoin as a treasury reserve asset boosts your runway as a company, and again, you also keep tighter reins on cost. Cost control is the biggest problem with companies. I mean, you spend so much on so many things that costs can run away very easily. You forget about reoccurring subscriptions that you started years ago and just completely forgot about. Being on a Bitcoin standard, it gives you an extreme discipline because you do not want to spend your Bitcoin unless it's absolutely necessary. So it enforces discipline.
I understand that. And so this is why I want to switch gears a little bit and go a little bit and talk about market fit and how you appeal to the Bitcoin customer to give you their precious Bitcoin, okay? So for your business, and each one can elaborate in the way that you see fit, but you each have clients that are not all Bitcoiners, especially you, John. Not everyone that walks through the door is a Bitcoiner. So how do you appeal to the audience, to your Bitcoin customer? How do you make them want to spend Bitcoin in your business?
I think we just don't distinguish between Bitcoin customers or any other customers. I think it's simply slow and steady wins the race. And it's true that not everybody's going to want to spend Bitcoin in general because of price appreciation over time. But this changes to a certain degree over time depending on what happens with the stability of the current system. And not only that, I think a lot of people in the beginning, they know it's the beginning, they support businesses that are trying to do this, and they come and, you know, may not be spending their Bitcoin, but they'll spend Strike's Bitcoin. And, you know, and that's really easy to do. So I think a lot of it is still the phase of moral support. And people want to do it also to test it out, see how it works. Is it easier? And then people will also, you know, just see it and they'll be like, hey, can I try that out? And they get their rewards and then they re-spend it back in. That's another reason why the rewards program is really good. But I think it's, you know, I don't think that we need to force this issue. I think the game theory of it all is going to really push this down the road. And so don't spend it if you don't want to, spend it if you want to. It's just a customer, but we want to just make sure that they know that we have alternatives to fiat.
I mean, we hear often that Bitcoin education is like the biggest barrier to like using Bitcoin too. So what are some of the challenges that you face in your business when dealing with those people that don't really have an understanding of Bitcoin, but they may be curious to support you in that way? Maybe you can give us an experience that you've had with a customer and how you dealt with it that you could share with the audience. Maybe we can start with you, Gabe.
So we've gone through a couple iterations as a company. Earlier, yeah, there's lots of education. Now, with the way, and I don't think we even explained what we do. So block spaces, we've built a collateral management solution for institutions that's Bitcoin native, Bitcoin based. So right now our business model is all in Bitcoin, so we don't have to educate as much. But prior, we did have to do a lot of educating, and that's that's why I started the meetups 10 years ago now, to facilitate a lot of that ground level education that still needs to happen today, right? And that's why events like these are very important to help spread the word and get people knowledgeable about how this all works.
Neo, have you had any challenges with people trying to pay you in Bitcoin? Because you have the majority of your customers are Bitcoiners already.
Yeah, we don't have much trouble. Remember, like our business, we're not face to face, right? It's an e-commerce business. I'm not trying to convert people into Bitcoiners, or people that come to our site. Like I said, almost all of them, they're buying a Bitcoin T-shirt, right? Like they're already like probably crazy passionate, or maybe it's someone's, mom that wants to buy it for their kid, and maybe they're not passionate about Bitcoin, but then they're just going to use their credit card, right? In our kind of transactions, that's not the point of sale isn't the orange pilling moment for new people. It's the Bitcoiner buying it however they want, fiat or Bitcoin, and then wearing the merch out and someone asks them about it. So we're not really the best example from a point of sale perspective when it comes to like getting new people onto Bitcoin or like troubles with Bitcoin. The only like issues we've ever had with Bitcoin is sometimes people will underpay their invoice, right? And then it's like, oh, what do we do? Do we just like let it go? And it's usually like not that much money. And that's Bitcoiners that are underpaying their invoices. And then, yeah, so that's really the only issue we ever have. But it's not a big deal. Well, what's so funny over there? Yeah. Well, I don't notice the overpayments. Well, no, and not on purpose. I actually that's funny though, I actually get a notification when it's an underpayment. If they pay the amount or it's overpaid, I wouldn't even realize. So yeah, it probably does happen, but I don't.
He's not gonna complain about it, okay?
Right.
So
it is convenient, but like, why am I gonna like waste time on looking at that?
Right. Mike, I mean, you as an investor, like, have you ever had to explain to the people that support your syndicate what's the return on investment on a Bitcoin business? Do they, because maybe they come from a traditional background. Do you have to educate them on that?
So first off, if you have a brick and mortar business, if you have, Aunt Mary's dress shop or whatever, John's very smart because, his business is selling badass tacos. Okay, it doesn't matter how people pay, and you would be silly not to accept Bitcoin. You would be silly not to put the little sticker on the window and the cash register and get listed on BTC maps. There is a world of Bitcoiners that are quite wealthy and quite fantastic, outstanding people, right? We're all here, that will psychotically seek out not only the best tacos, but the best tacos where they can chat with somebody who, and use some Bitcoin, right? As far as paying with Bitcoin, I find it to be a complete novelty. I don't enjoy paying with Bitcoin. I would rather get the mileage points or whatever and deal with it later. I mean, you're in El Salvador, you're getting your passport at the airport, and you pay your $12 in Bitcoin. That's like fun, right? But I guarantee you, when I get his tacos, I'm getting Bitcoin back by using my Gemini credit card. 3% at restaurants, by the way, in Bitcoin. And I'm going to pay him with that, right? And that's going to solve it. But if you have a business, you'd be really silly not to get listed and like open up your business to like this crowd of people because they have money they like to spend, they're psychotic, and they'll be the future people that have a bunch of money.
And it's better for your business. Just you pay less, right, in fees than you would with a credit card. So it makes sense. I rather people pay with Bitcoin on our site. So yeah, that's another reason why wouldn't you do it?
Yeah, the other thing is chargebacks are insane, and we had a lady scamming us. She was quite good, And she worked for a property management company, and so she had the personal identification of many tenants, and she would go from different email addresses and different phone numbers and have delivery hit like on a street corner rather than a unit, and then she would charge everything back. It was like $2,000 in a week, and I just really hated fiat at that point because they just let it happen. So we ended up catching her. The police walked to the ATM and made her take out $1,000, but we were still down. So like the fact that nobody can take your revenue away when you accept it is highly underrated.
And I did have a brick and mortar business, and we've accepted Bitcoin. And the challenge for me was always actually training the staff. Okay, that was pre-Lightning Network. You know, everything was the blockchain info wallet. I mean, that was pretty much what you did. And you had a 22-year-old bartender who you just hired, and it's her second shift. And maybe one person comes in and says they want to pay for Bitcoin. And good Lord, is that an issue, right? Just ringing that up and figuring out how that works. That was always like the biggest challenge. And I don't think that anyone's really fully fixed that yet. You know, until that Square cash register POS is just that easy, which it really should be right now. I don't know why it isn't. But it's still kind of a problem with the staff.
Well, I want to give you props for that, John, because I've been to Taquisa multiple times, and I have paid with Bitcoin, and your employees were not looking at me like I was crazy, and I was grateful for that. So whatever you're doing is working.
Well, for them, it's easier. The Square issue has been an issue for some time. I actually was waiting for Square and Cash App to just pull that magic, you know, cable and link it all together and make it seamless and wonderful. And it just didn't happen and didn't happen and didn't happen. So we had to piece it together, and we still have to take the Bitcoin payment on a separate tablet. So the tech stack part of the industry needs to really get that together. And they actually, Cash App came and did a video for the conference before last, and we talked a lot about this, and they're kind of as well more in the, you know, we'll convert some of your revenue to Bitcoin automatically, and they're kind of in the store of value phase, it seems like. But as soon as somebody integrates to where it's just seamless, then you don't have to do anything with your staff. It's just, how do you want to pay?
Yeah, it sounds like that's a challenge for a lot of retail businesses, where interoperability between the different POS systems that they may have is a problem. So, which brings us to my next topic of discussion, which is in relation to scalability. I feel like scalability is something that comes up often about a challenge for Bitcoin, period. It doesn't matter if it's layer 1 or layer 2. I was recently at BTC++, which is a developer conference, which I highly recommend for anyone here that has an interest in being the future CTO of your business, because you learn a lot of great topics there. And for me, it was interesting to see how many developers are still struggling with the technical limitations that exist at layer 1 and layer 2, including Lightning, which is the one that most people are familiar with. So I just wanted to take your perspective on this from the ones from you two primarily, because I know that not everyone takes the initiative to try to understand how Lightning works and trying to manage their own Lightning channels, and, you know, taking all these steps that are more like technical. So for those in the audience here that may not be inclined to be technical, what are some of the tools that you use to help you manage the Lightning Network? Or if you manage your own, which I know you do, like, what are some of the recommendations that you have for the audience here to be able to manage your Lightning Network, so your Lightning channels, so that you don't suffer from the fees, so that you can, you know, strategically think when you're going to settle on layer 1, things like this? If you can start.
Yeah, it's a really good question, and we're still, I would say, in the early phases of this, using Lightning at scale. For a business, it can get quite complicated, to be honest. We run our own Lightning node, we manage our own liquidity, and we manage liquidity for our customers as well. But doing so in a non-custodial way is how we orchestrated it. but it's still complex, and there's a lot of nuance to it. So it does rely on the base layer, almost completely, right? So, but once you have liquidity on the Lightning Network, things get much easier. So if you can get on Lightning and stay on Lightning, that would be ideal. And things with like splicing becoming more prevalent, hopefully implemented in more implementations. L&D, let's go. That will make that flow of liquidity within the Lightning Network a lot more flexible, which will help streamline a lot of the complexities that are now currently kind of riddling the network. But as far as some tools that normies can use, or even Bitcoiners that aren't technical, there are some new wallets, self-custody wallets that are very easy to use, like Mutiny Wallet, I highly recommend, and Zeus Wallet.
Great.
Yeah, for us it was a little different. So I'm all pro self-sovereignty, running our own nodes, et cetera, et cetera. But for a business that's kind of complex, where we have multiple locations and lots of employees and controls and all of this kind of stuff, you have to think twice about, okay, what are the pros and cons? So we ended up, I was trying to figure this out for a while, and I ended up meeting Ibex and the owner of Ibex and their team, and then we started talking, and and so I had to kind of think, okay, well, if we're going to do the Lightning stuff ourselves, what about downtime? And if we have something that goes down, it's not like me just consulting and I can start it back up again, or doing something simple. It's, you have a line of people, you have revenue coming in, you have staff that get all weirded out when their POS doesn't work. And so there's all these other implications. And so for me, the calculation was, okay, I can pay a little fee. I'm saving a bunch on credit card fees, but I can have somebody manage that for me through Ibex. And I always have somebody to call that if, it doesn't have to depend on me driving down and flipping that breaker switch. And it was only, we're only talking about a little bit of revenue. So I'm like, okay, it's going to be custodial, but they sweep it into our, we use Unchained Capital. We have a multi-sig with them. So that's custodial, or non-custodial. And so it was really, I thought about going down the do-it-ourself route, but the operational implications would be far more disruptive. So, it could be that we risk a little bit of revenue, but so far they've been a great partner, and so I think it's always important to say, okay, I don't really think that technical solutions should be necessarily always ideological. I mean, I agree that these will develop, but for a common person that just has a business that doesn't know a lot of this technology, there's good solutions that you can, partner with that make it easier. You can get the job done. You can start learning from there, but you don't need to throw yourself into the fire necessarily. So we've done both. So we have, for non-complex operations, then we could, spin up our own node and do it that way. But so far, it's been really good to just have uptime to source that out, and then we put it in Unchained.
Yeah. So it sounds like you need to think through what's best for your business based on your skill set and the availability that you need these tools to be functioning at what capacity. So do you have any other tools that you recommend, Mike, that you've seen from the many companies that you've invested in?
So the best way to lose a Bitcoiner is to get them to try to do all this kind of shit, right? I mean, like, he needs to be focused on making badass tacos, okay? And the 987 other ways that, like, he's trying to not die as a business, right? The last thing that he needs to be thinking about in a lunch rush is, oh, fuck, the node's down. Oh, shit, let me call her. Babe, go into the room. No, the other switch. No, not that one. No, but that's pretty much what happens, okay? Because you give someone $100 worth of Bitcoin, or they do a small DCA, whether it's custodial, you get them something, you have them forever. Nobody like gets $100 worth of Bitcoin and then 6 weeks later is like, hey, I tried this Bitcoin thing, I hate it, right? That does not happen, right? They like will buy $100 and then they'll forget about it, and a year later they're like, it's $250. Like, wow, what's going on, right? You have them forever. How you lose people is that, right? Trying to manage liquidity, running their own Lightning node, the shit's not working. Like, that's why I love these companies like IBEX, OpenNode, or even the Strike enterprise products, right? To key it in for your business, or if you're a little more tech savvy, I don't know, something like a Voltage. But like really trying to manage that yourself, okay, in like a fully non-custodial, we run our own node for like the 4 people a month that are going to come in and pay in Bitcoin in your business in reality, unless you're Neil, right, at 20%. But you know, that to me,
So there you go.
right, and he uses OpenNode because Neil's very efficient or lazy, however you want to say it. And Neil's not going to be managing all that liquidity himself. He's going to have them do it, and it's totally worth it. And that's their entire business is doing that. So I don't know. I love all those things, and there's just no way. I mean, I have a Start 9 for fun, and I mean, does it?
Push back a little bit on this. The only thing I would say is there are certain businesses who are, you know, cut off from traditional systems and might be, you know, blackballed from companies. So they would need to run their own. So, you know, yeah, they're edge cases for now, but there's still a reason someone might want to run BTC Pay Server. Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. That's all I have to say.
And I do think as time passes on, you know, it used to be that everybody knew how to grow their own food. And that will come back when people learn what's in it. And people will need to be more tech savvy as time goes on, but that just takes time. So I think even the non-custodial solutions will get better and better, and they'll get easier. So I think people have more options, but I mean, forget it. The first time you gave your grandpa a cell phone, but now look at him, you know? So it just takes time. But in the meantime, yeah, you got a business to run. You got a business to run. You can't have it fail by tinkering, so.
Yeah, like ultimately you need the best customer experience, and you don't want to be spending time on new technologies, which we all believe are eventually, you know, going to take over one day. But right now they're still in their, you know, relative infancy. You don't want to mess anything up.
Yeah, and for because we're running a little short on time, I just wanted to ask you, Gabe, one last question out of curiosity, since you know, from the conversations that I've had, the Lightning Network, with their limitations, the technical limitations that currently exist that they're being worked on, there are other developers working on different solutions for layer 2. And I was just wondering if in your business you're thinking like more long term, like besides Lightning, have you considered any other layer 2 solutions in the future for your business as you scale?
Yeah, it's a good question. I try to pay attention to everything because that's the great thing is the optionality that we have with Bitcoin, whether you choose to run your own nodes or go through a third party. We have the option now. So I like to keep my options open, my eye on all the different things that are coming out. Right now, though, I don't see a whole lot of other things that I would really trust yet as far as some of the newer layer 2s, even though some are starting to get traction, like Liquid. Those are interesting to me, but nothing that I would use from a business perspective yet.
Okay. I would love to open the floor for any questions here from the audience if anyone wants to ask about the different tools or any other questions that you have. This is the opportunity. Prem.
I would like to ask Muz, what inspired you to focus on Bitcoin, specifically Lightning? What inspired that?
It was now using the name Lightning Ventures. Everyone thinks that we just invest in Lightning companies, right? Because that is where it's going. That's where we think it's going to scale, right? Even though maybe even somebody earlier said that it can't scale globally, right? Or what does that do to fees? But really, just we invest in all things Bitcoin. So all things Bitcoin and all things Bitcoin only, right? since there is no such thing as a Bitcoin business, I know it's very difficult. I'm going to have to rethink that in the thesis of the fund. But pretty much everything. Why? Well, before that, I had invested in many different startups, right? Like over 1,500, from, you know, the flying cars and the robotic lawnmowers and whatever you can think of. And I really only care about Bitcoin, and I really only want to look at Bitcoin companies and work with Bitcoin founders and entrepreneurs all day and helping them with their business. So I can only do that. And, you know, a lot of the crypto VCs or crypto people, I don't know how you do it, because it's this chain and that chain and this thing, and like, you got to be a G. It's hard to even be an expert on just one thing, right? You know, even with a lot of the layer 2s and stuff, I don't spend a lot of time. I have 2 badass technical advisors, Giacomo Zucco and Rockstar Dev. And the joke is like, hey, listen, if Bitcoin breaks, can you guys call me first? Like, cool, appreciate it. You know, or if any of these layer 2s are really something to look at, right, and are a thing and not just an idea, right? Arc, it was Arc was the best. Arc, it's not a thing, right? It's not like an actual thing. So like how, you know, Paul Stork's thing, like all the other things, the drive chains and all these other things, like they're not actually things yet. So like you only have so much time in a day, and it's like, hey, you've got like 3 founders over here that are struggling that you can try to help out. Or like I can sit in La La Land with like reading this white paper on like, wow, this is going to be big, but like this is not even like a real thing yet, you know? So like just trying to stay focused on just one thing. And I just chose Bitcoin because that's all I care about, and that's it, you know, and building around it. And it's basically like the internet, right? You know, the internet, I'm old, I'll be 42 next week. But like when that started, you had all these things that you could invest in, right? You had the hardware, you had AOL, you had Cisco Systems, you had the computers, you had Netscape, we all remember it, right? You didn't just invest in this internet, you invested in that whole world. So if we're all right with Bitcoin, and how Bitcoin's going to be the thing, then whether it's Fountain for podcasting or Value for Value or some clever mining heating device that heats in your house, or, you know, one of these other things, right? It's all of those other things that are being built on or around Bitcoin. That's what, you know, we'll see, and that's what I focus on.
Ben, you had a question?
Yeah. How I've actually grown my clubs so quickly is I aligned the expansion of each club with the price appreciation historically of actual Bitcoin. So I actually poured a ton of money in at like 18 to 24 grand each coin. And then I had 100,000 for up in Nashville. I had 100,000 up in Boston. Well, as I've had this club working out the actual, you know, ins and outs and learning how our club's gonna run, that capital appreciation over that time for each future club has allowed me to open $2 million worth of clubs for $200,000. I wonder when other people are going to get smart enough to do that. Do you see that in a future corporate structure?
You're the example, right? So I would say people should do it. Do I see it anytime soon?
I think it's just a matter of time, but I also think that you know, there's the price appreciation, but then there's the rapidity of the devaluing of the dollar, and this is going to get more intense. And so when they may say, okay, this cycle, maybe this cycle, oh, could be, and then this cycle reaffirms it, I think it's only going to get stronger because you're going to see people like, oh, well, milk is doing this, and my supplies are doing that, and gas is doing this, and it's going to happen faster and faster. I think we're getting pretty close to the suddenly part. and then it's going to be so in your face that sometimes I feel like there's going to be like a no sell on Bitcoin and a no sell on other things that might tag along with it, like gold for a while. But people will be like, look, I may have missed the boat. I got to get on this or else I'm out of business. So I think that it'll be more pronounced as time goes on. I think we have it the last because of the world's reserve currency, and we're kind of exporting this inflation. But people are going to be shocked pretty soon about how the degradation of fiat really progresses. And I think that will spur what you did. I think that you're reaping the rewards far more than people that would come after you. And so I think the early adopters advantage in that case. You know.
Publish a book on this so that people can follow your model.
It was obvious. We have a cycle that we anticipate that cycle, it may not grow as, up and down, but we have a cycle. And when you own an actual business and you plan on expanding, you have a 4-year, you have a 10-year, you have a 15-year view. Why wouldn't you allocate capital in the growing asset now, leave it there, let it grow, then when you've actually worked out your expansion model, you have a capital pool that's quadrupled. And it's how you grow your business quicker.
Look, it's also how you kill your business. Okay. No, absolutely no. Bitcoin. Hello. We'll remember Bitcoin 64,000. It's going to 100. Yacht parties, champagne, price dumps. Good way to also kill your business too. By riding that down. I mean, you have to manage a treasury on both sides.
Here. Let me talk slower. All right. We have a cycle. Do you know what a cycle is? All right. That means you have a directional, all right, in a yearly timeline. We know approximately when it's up and when it's down. If you plan out your expansion, and remember, everything's fluid, so you can plan your expansion on that cycle, and you don't worry about the downfalls, you just buy more. Because when it's up is when you build, when it's down is when you recapitalize for your next expansion.
Yeah, I kind of...
Does that help you?
Your point is, past results are necessarily going to be the same as the future, though, right? Isn't that what you're saying?
History repeats itself.
It's a small sample. I don't disagree with you. I think Bitcoin's going to keep going up. But it's you're saying there is a way to time this, right? And I think
it's debatable. It's regression models can vary with different factors. So let's move on to the next question. Diane, I saw you first earlier. Sorry, like Amazon?
Something like an Amazon that's taking Bitcoin.
Yeah, Overstock has been taking Bitcoin for a long time, actually.
It might be like 10 years or something, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's a long time. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's purse.io. Did they close? Yeah. And you can also purchase Amazon gift cards with Bitcoin.
Okay, we have one more question, Ross.
What is a SAT center?
It doesn't exist anymore, if that's what
okay, I just saw it in your bio, so
I was on the board of directors of it like a couple years ago. Why?
I don't know what it is, so what is it?
Oh, yeah, no. It was basically out of the 2021 infrastructure bill. There was a lot of nonsense around crypto legislation, and out of that, a bunch of different organizations popped up. There was SAT Center, BTC Policy, the one that BTC Inc. is in charge of, Satoshi Action Fund. So that's all it was. It was about trying to influence policy at state and local levels. But that one is defunct now. And I was on the board of that for a year. That's it.
Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, panelists, for your contribution to the Bitcoin ecosystem. Thank you, everyone, for the questions.